How can a microwave oven cook food so fast?
Unlike other ovens, which cook food with heat waves made from burning gas or electric currents, microwave ovens use special bands of electromagnetic energy called microwaves, similar to light waves, to cook food. While heat waves gradually work their way inside food to cook it, microwaves can travel right through food in an instant. In a microwave oven, a device called a magnetron produces a beam of microwaves that pass through a spinning fan, which sends the waves bouncing in all directions. As they travel through food, their energy is absorbed by molecules of water. The water molecules vibrate at the same high speed as the microwaves, 2.45 billion times per second, and rub against other molecules. All this movement and friction causes a great deal of heat, cooking the food inside and out. Microwaved food is cooked through a process similar to steaming, which explains why it doesn't turn brown. But some microwave ovens have traditional heating elements to make food look more appealing, giving it the outer color that we expect in cooked food. Certain materials allow microwaves to pass through, meaning they aren't heated by the waves, while other materials absorb the waves and still others reflect them, or bounce them back. For this reason, it is important to be careful about the containers and coverings we use in microwave ovens. Microwaves pass through glass and plastic wrap, for example, which are safe to use, as are paper products and most sturdy plastics. But metal containers and coverings like aluminum foil are reflective. Such surfaces keep food from absorbing microwaves, allowing the waves to bounce around so much inside an oven that it may break.
How can a microwave oven cook food so fast?
Unlike other ovens, which cook food with heat waves made from burning gas or electric currents, microwave ovens use special bands of electromagnetic energy called microwaves, similar to light waves, to cook food. While heat waves gradually work their way inside food to cook it, microwaves can travel right through food in an instant. In a microwave oven, a device called a magnetron produces a beam of microwaves that pass through a spinning fan, which sends the waves bouncing in all directions. As they travel through food, their energy is absorbed by molecules of water. The water molecules vibrate at the same high speed as the microwaves, 2.45 billion times per second, and rub against other molecules. All this movement and friction causes a great deal of heat, cooking the food inside and out. Microwaved food is cooked through a process similar to steaming, which explains why it doesn't turn brown. But some microwave ovens have traditional heating elements to make food look more appealing, giving it the outer color that we expect in cooked food. Certain materials allow microwaves to pass through, meaning they aren't heated by the waves, while other materials absorb the waves and still others reflect them, or bounce them back. For this reason it is important to be careful about the containers and coverings we use in microwave ovens. Microwaves pass through glass and plastic wrap, for example, which are safe to use, as are paper products and most sturdy plastics. But metal containers and coverings like aluminum foil are reflective. Such surfaces keep food from absorbing microwaves, allowing the waves to bounce around so much inside an oven that it may break.
Why do burning things make smoke?
During a fire, the air around it becomes heated. The heated air sweeps up water vapor, molecules of water that float in the air, and tiny specks of the fuel, the material being burned, into a dark cloud of smoke. The more incompletely something burns, the more smoke it produces. Because more particles are left to be swept up into the air, smoke gradually spreads out and drifts away, with gravity pulling the heaviest bits back to the ground. When a fire first starts to burn, there is usually a lot of smoke, which decreases as more of the fuel is burned completely. Smoke detectors take advantage of the fact that fires cause a lot of smoke in their early stages. The detectors sense the small particles in smoke before a fire really starts to burn. An optical smoke detector uses a light beam and light sensor that sounds an alarm when smoke particles get in the way of the beam. An ionizing smoke detector can sense even smaller particles. They disturb a low electric current inside, which sets off an alarm.
Why do burning things make smoke?
During a fire, the air around it becomes heated. The heated air sweeps up water vapor, molecules of water that float in the air, and tiny specks of the fuel, the material being burned, into a dark cloud of smoke. The more incompletely something burns, the more smoke it produces. Because more particles are left to be swept up into the air, smoke gradually spreads out and drifts away, with gravity pulling the heaviest bits back to the ground. When a fire first starts to burn, there is usually a lot of smoke, which decreases as more of the fuel is burned completely. Smoke detectors take advantage of the fact that fires cause a lot of smoke in their early stages. The detectors sense the small particles in smoke before a fire really starts to burn. An optical smoke detector uses a light beam and light sensor that sounds an alarm when smoke particles get in the way of the beam. An ionizing smoke detector can sense even smaller particles. They disturb a low electric current inside, which sets off an alarm.
How do submarine pilots know where they are going when they are underwater?
If they are not too far below the surface, a periscope is used. This tall, rotating, tube-shaped instrument can be raised above the water's surface to view surroundings. Using a series of mirrors and lenses inside to relay images. Beyond that, submarines use sonar, sound waves, to make echo soundings of their surroundings. Transmitted sound waves are reflected off objects or the ocean floor. The time it takes for these sound waves to be reflected back indicates how far away things are located. The echoes are then converted into electrical signals that appear on a display screen, which gives a picture similar to that of an airport's radar screen of surrounding waters.
Why do burning things make smoke?
During a fire, the air around it becomes heated. The heated air sweeps up water vapor, molecules of water that float in the air, and tiny specks of the fuel, the material being burned, into a dark cloud of smoke. The more incompletely something burns, the more smoke it produces. Because more particles are left to be swept up into the air, smoke gradually spreads out and drifts away, with gravity pulling the heaviest bits back to the ground. When a fire first starts to burn, there is usually a lot of smoke, which decreases as more of the fuel is burned completely. Smoke detectors take advantage of the fact that fires cause a lot of smoke in their early stages. The detectors sense the small particles in smoke before a fire really starts to burn. An optical smoke detector uses a light beam and light sensor that sounds an alarm when smoke particles get in the way of the beam. An ionizing smoke detector can sense even smaller particles. They disturb a low electric current inside, which sets off an alarm.
How does a magnifying glass work?
A magnifying glass is a convex lens, which means that it is much thicker in the middle than around its edges. This shape bends the light waves of objects viewed through it, causing us to see them in unusual ways. When you hold a magnifying glass close to an object, its light waves are widened before they are focused on your eyes, causing the object to appear very large. But when you hold a magnifying glass out and view a distant object with it, the item appears smaller and upside down. This effect is due to the image being beyond the focus of the lens. The more curved a convex lens is, the greater its ability to bend light and magnify. Microscopes, which allow us to look at things that are too small to be seen with our eyes, and binoculars and telescopes, which make far away things look bigger and nearer to us, also use convex lenses.
How does music come from a compact disc?
Not too long ago, music was recorded on a phonograph record, which was the first invention that made a permanent record of sounds that could be played back. Sound vibrations like a voice singing or an instrument playing were changed by a microphone into electrical signals that directed a sharp needle to cut a wiggly groove into a spinning plastic or vinyl record. A record player, with its needle riding lightly in the groove of a revolving record, could reproduce the electrical signals and change them back into sound through its speakers. Today, compact discs, CDs, are used instead of phonograph records to record music. Less than 5 inches across, CDs can hold more music than long-playing, LP, 12-inch records. This capacity is possible because a CD spins very fast as its signals are read. Up to 500 revolutions per minute, LPs make about 33 complete turns per minute. The spiral track of a CD is also very fine, thinner than a human hair, which allows more music to be fit onto its smaller surface. On the bottom side of a CD is a thin metal sheet. Tiny round depressions called pits which represent sound fill its spiral track. Just as needles were used to cut grooves into phonograph records. Chemicals eat away the metal on CDs to create these pits. A beam of laser light is used instead of a record player needle to change a CD's pitted track back into sound. Unlike ordinary light, which spreads out in all directions once it leaves its source, laser light can be focused with great accuracy. It moves along the track of a CD, and sensors detect the pattern of shiny flat parts, which reflect light back, and pits, which don't. These on and off flashes of reflected light turn into electrical signals. A computer in a compact disc player, which has an enormous memory that stores every possible combination of on and off patterns, converts the signals to musical notes with different pitches and volumes in the player's speakers. And then the music plays. Unlike phonographic sound, which could be impaired by scratched records, dull playing needles, or wobbly turntables, the sound from compact discs is remarkably true to life because such problems don't affect the efficiency of laser beams. A DVD, which stands for Digital Versatile Disc, uses very similar technology to a CD, only DVDs can hold much more data, about 7 times more than a CD. In recent years their outstanding quality have made DVDs increasingly popular. They can hold a full-length movie as well as many added features, like subtitles in multiple languages, commentaries from directors, extra scenes that were deleted from the final version of the movie, and more.
Why do metal things feel cold?
When heat is transferred from one material to another, it is called conduction. Metal is a good conductor of heat, while nonmetals like wood and plastic are poor conductors. The temperature of any metal object in a room is about the same as the air that surrounds it. Your body, on the other hand, has its own internal furnace, which keeps it running at a temperature of about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. when you touch a metal object that's surrounded by air cooler than your body. The object quickly conducts heat away from your fingertips, which makes them feel cold. The sensation travels to your brain, which perceives that the metal object is cold. If you hold a small metal object, like a penny, in your hand for a long time, it will absorb enough of your body heat to feel as warm as you are. The opposite is also true, if you touch the hood of a car that's been sitting in a sunny driveway on a warm day. The metal will conduct heat to your fingertips, and the hood will feel hot to you.
What plant has the biggest flower?
The largest flower in the world has a rather unpleasant name and an equally unpleasant scent. The stinking corpse lily, or Rafflesia arnoldi. This rare and endangered flower grows in the jungles of the Southeast Asian islands Borneo and Sumatra. The flowers are orange-brown in color with large white speckles. They can measure 3 feet across and weigh up to 25 pounds, 11 kilograms. Because the stinking corpse lily is a parasite plant, which means that it gets its nourishment from other plants, it has no stem or leaves. The flower seeds attach themselves to jungle vines and burrow into the vine's tissue, where they germinate and grow. Eventually a blossom pushes through the vine and grows to huge proportions.
Why does poison ivy give people rashes?
A very irritating oily substance called urushiol is in all parts of a poison ivy plant, as well as in its itchy cousins, poison oak and poison sumac. The plants are found across North America, especially near streams and lakes. The oil itself is harmless, but once it interacts with substances on human skin, it can be interpreted by the body as an unwanted foreign invader. The body's immune system then kicks in and tries to get rid of it. This response is an allergic reaction. About 70% of all people are allergic to the plants and will develop itchy red bumps, blisters, and skin swelling a short time after they come in contact with them. Once the rash occurs, it can spread from one part of the body to another and sometimes lasts many days. Contact with these poisonous plants can happen directly, when a person touches them, or indirectly, when he or she touches clothes, tools, or animals that have the irritating oil on them. Very sensitive people can even get a rash from the smoke of burning poison ivy, oak, and sumac. The best way to keep from getting an itchy rash is to avoid the plants that cause them. Avoidance is especially hard with poison ivy, which is a creeping, crawling vine that lives among other plants. Poison oak and sumac are more bush-like. Learning what poison ivy looks like helps. The vine has smooth leaflets arranged in clusters of 3, which are red in early spring, change to shiny green in summer, and then back to red in autumn. Poison ivy sometimes has gray berries, too. if you know that you will be visiting a place where poison ivy grows. Wear pants and long sleeves and even gloves. Afterwards, your outfit should be washed as soon as possible, separate from other clothes with hot water and strong soap. If you accidentally touch a poison ivy plant, wash your skin with soap and water right away and then use rubbing alcohol to make sure that all of its irritating oil is gone. If you get a rash anyway, try not to scratch, which will only make it worse. Most people get relief from such rashes with anti-itch medications like hydrocortisone, which reduces the swelling and keeps your body from reacting to the plant's oils. See a doctor if the rash covers your face or a large area on your body.
If plants make their own food, why do some eat insects?
Carnivorous, or meat-eating, plants do make their own food through photosynthesis. But they also capture small prey, most frequently insects, for the minerals that they provide. Usually carnivorous plants, like Venus flytraps, grow in swamps and marshes where the minerals that plants need for growth, especially nitrogen, are in short supply. Minerals from the bodies of insects caught in their leaves allow carnivorous plants to grow in these otherwise unsuitable places. Carnivorous plants usually attract insects with nectar or with a pleasing smell or color. Many have sticky leaves or slippery pouches that trap insects once they land there. The Venus flytrap has pairs of jaw-like leaves that snap shut. When attached trigger hairs are disturbed by a visiting insect. Once insects are trapped, carnivorous plants produce spe chemicals that digest them. Scientists have identified nearly 500 species of carnivorous plants.
How does a thermos keep cold things cold and hot things hot?
A thermos is also called a vacuum bottle because it uses a vacuum space that has no air in it to keep heat from escaping from hot things inside. It also keeps heat from getting inside to make cold things warmer. The vacuum is located in a thin space between the thermos liner and its outer wall, where it stops the movement of heat to and from the outside air. A vacuum works in a thermos because it is empty of air and molecules, and therefore has no conductivity. Heat is caused by the motion of molecules. Because the opening of a thermos is also tightly sealed with a stopper or lid made of a non-conductive material, no heat can escape or enter there, either. Hot food stored in a thermos can keep its heat for many hours, in the same way. Cold food can remain cold because the vacuum insulates it from the warm air surrounding the thermos. The linings of thermoses used to be made of glass, which is a good insulator. The linings were also coated with silver, which made them shiny and reflective. Such mirrored liners worked very well. They were able to efficiently bounce back the invisible rays of heat energy, radiation, given off by all hot things. But there was one problem: glass thermos bottles broke easily. Today, most thermos containers are made of metal or plastic, which generally don't work quite as well. Also, because vacuums in thermoses aren't perfect, they contain some air, and because their lids don't seal perfectly, they cannot keep cold things cold and hot things hot forever.
What is nectar?
Nectar is a sweet liquid made in special glands called nectaries in flowering plants. Located deep within a flower, at the base of its petals. Nectar is an important part of the diets of many insects and animals. The most important gatherers of nectar are honeybees, which bring it back to their hives to make delicious honey.
Do all flowers close at night?
Many flowers close at night, or when the weather is cold. They start to shut as sunlight begins to fade. Studies have shown that the temperature inside a closed flower, where a plant's important reproductive structures and pollen are located, can be several degrees warmer than the surrounding air outside. In some flowers, the warmth attracts pollinating insects, who spend the night there. In the morning, when sunlight returns, flowers open again, ready for insects and other animals to feed from them and spread their pollen. Some plants are even known to close their leaves at night. Some flowers remain closed during the day and open at night, like the evening primrose. Such flowers follow that schedule because the creatures that feed from and pollinate them, like moths and bats, are nocturnal, or active only at night.
How can a microwave oven cook food so fast?
Unlike other ovens, which cook food with heat waves made from burning gas or electric currents, microwave ovens use special bands of electromagnetic energy called microwaves, similar to light waves, to cook food. While heat waves gradually work their way inside food to cook it, microwaves can travel right through food in an instant. In a microwave oven, a device called a magnetron produces a beam of microwaves that pass through a spinning fan, which sends the waves bouncing in all directions. As they travel through food, their energy is absorbed by molecules of water. The water molecules vibrate at the same high speed as the microwaves, 2.45 billion times per second, and rub against other molecules. All this movement and friction causes a great deal of heat, cooking the food inside and out. Microwave food is cooked through a process similar to steaming, which explains why it doesn't turn brown. But some microwave ovens have traditional heating elements to make food look more appealing, giving it the outer color that we expect in cooked food. Certain materials allow microwaves to pass through, meaning they aren't heated by the waves, while other materials absorb the waves and still others reflect them, or bounce them back. For this reason it is important to be careful about the containers and coverings we use in microwave ovens. Microwaves pass through glass and plastic wrap, for example, which are safe to use, as are paper products and most sturdy plastics. But metal containers and coverings like aluminum foil are reflective. Such surfaces keep food from absorbing microwaves, allowing the waves to bounce around so much inside an oven that it may break.
Why do some flowers smell like perfume?
Different chemicals in plants and flowers called essential oils give them their special scents. Flowers have fragrances so they can attract the creatures they need for cross-pollination. Some of the insects and other animals that feed from flowers have keen senses of smell. Bees, for instance, have sensitive odor detectors in their antennae, so most bee flowers are scented. Flowers that open only at night are often strongly scented. To help the creatures that feed from them like moths find them in the dark. Not all flowers have pretty scents, though. Some flowers actually smell like rotten meat or other decaying matter in order to attract flies. Flies usually lay their eggs in decaying materials because that's what hatched fly larvae. The immature stage of a fly, feed on, therefore. Flies are drawn to plants that look and smell, to the fly, anyway, like garbage. Bats that feed on plants are also attracted to flowers that have what we would consider unpleasant scents.
How does television work?
Television works through a series of complicated processes. It starts with a television camera, which takes pictures of scenes. Photocells inside the camera change the pictures to electrical signals. At the same time, a microphone records sounds that are occurring during the scenes. A vibrating magnet in the microphone changes these sounds into electrical signals, too. Some television shows, like news reports, are recorded live, which means that they are broadcast to homes as they occur. But most of the television programs that we watch are recorded, which means that they are put on videotape and sent out later. The electrical signals of sound and pictures are stored as magnetic signals on videotape, which are converted back to electrical signals when played. Before a program is broadcast, its electrical picture and sound signals are run through a device called a television transmitter. With the help of strong magnets, the transformer turns the electrical signals into invisible bands of energy called radio waves. Similar to visible light waves, which can travel great distances through the air. They can travel directly to outdoor television antennae. which catch the waves and send them to television sets that change them into pictures and sounds again. Cable companies send electrical picture and sound signals through cables directly to homes. When broadcasting to faraway places, communication satellites that orbit the world are used to bounce or return the waves back to Earth, extending their travel distance. Satellites are necessary because radio waves move in straight lines and cannot bend around the world. When an antenna or satellite dish receives radio waves, it changes them back into electrical signals. A speaker in a television set changes some of the signals back into sound. The pictures are reproduced by special guns at the back of a television set that shoot electron beams at the screen, causing it to glow with tiny dots of different colors. Viewed together, the dots look like a regular picture. The individual pictures that make up a scene are broadcast and received one after another at a pace so quick that it looks like continuous action is occurring on the screen. The entire process happens very fast because television stations and broadcast towers are all around, and because radio waves travel very quickly, at the speed of light. Radio programs broadcast talk and music across the airwaves using the same technology.
How is sonar different from radar?
Sonar, short for sound navigation ranging, and radar, radio detection and ranging, work in much the same way to locate distant objects. In both cases, invisible waves are sent out and reflected back once they hit something solid. The time it takes for the waves to return to their point of origin tells how far away an object is located. Radar uses a certain type of light wave known as a radio wave to locate objects. Like all light waves, radar travels in a straight line and at a constant speed. At 186,000 miles, 299,274 kilometers per second, which is the speed of light. Sonar uses sound waves to locate objects. These waves, too, travel in a straight line, but at varying speeds, depending on what they are traveling through. Sound is caused by the vibration of an object, which in turn vibrates surrounding molecules that make sound waves in a kind of chain reaction. Sonar detection is mainly used underwater, where light waves do not travel well. In water, sound waves move about 4 times faster than they do through air because water is denser and has more molecules that can vibrate. But even at 4,600 feet, 1,400 meters per second, sound waves travel much more slowly than light waves. They also can't be used in outer space, which is airless and has essentially no molecules at all.
How do mirrors work?
A mirror can be any smooth, shiny surface that reflects, or bounces back, light. But most mirrors are made of sheets of glass. the backs of which have been coated with thin layers of reflective materials or metals, including silver. We see all things because light waves reflect off objects and into our eyes, creating images that are recognized by our brains. You can see yourself in a mirror because light rays reflected from your body bounce off the mirror's shiny surface and back into your eyes. But this double reflection creates an odd effect. Everything appears reversed. When you hold a book up to a mirror, for instance, the printing appears backward. In the same way, this double reflection of light allows you to see yourself in a glass window or on the surface of still water. But the reflection will not be as clear as one produced by a mirror, because some of the light waves that are reflected from you will be absorbed by the glass or water instead of bouncing back. If the wind disturbs the surface of your watery mirror, the water will absorb even more light. And the smooth areas, now small and scattered, will produce parts of a reflection so broken up that it will be too unclear to recognize.
Why do some plants have thorns?
Plants have no means of escaping from hungry animals, so they develop ways to defend themselves. Some plants have poisonous parts, while others have thorns and other sharp growths to defend against animals that would want to eat them. Animals that approach such a prickly plant are painfully snagged, which discourages them from coming closer.
How does a toaster work?
Inside a toaster are thick wires arranged in panels that heat up and toast your food. When you push down the lever that lowers your bread, it catches on a hook inside, turning on the heater, while your bread turns brown and crispy. A special metal switch inside the toaster gets hot, too, and bends. After a certain amount of time it bends so much that it pushes on a bar that releases the lever from the hook, and the toasting stops. This action also releases a spring, which pushes the lever up again and your toast pops up. All metals expand when they are heated.
What causes escalator steps to fold flat when they get to the top and the bottom?
The secret has to do with hidden wheels connected to each step that run along rails. Each stair has two wheels on each side. Wheels connected to the front of each stair run along one rail, and wheels connected to the back of each stair run along another. When escalator rails run alongside each other, their stairs have a normal shape. But the rails change position in relation to each other as they approach the top and bottom of an escalator, and the stairs are gradually pulled flat.
How do telephones work?
All sound is made by the back and forth movement, or vibration, of objects. When an object vibrates, it makes the molecules around it vibrate too, causing a ripple of motion known as a sound wave, which can travel through air, water, and solid materials. A telephone has vibrating parts, a disc in the mouthpiece and one in the earpiece that turn voice sounds into electrical signals that can travel along telephone wires and then turn back into sound again. Phones are usually connected to wires because they run on electricity. When you pick up a phone, a low electrical current allows you to dial the series of numbers that will connect you to the phone of a friend, for example. Each number on the phone has its own special electrical signal. And when the right numbers are combined, they can exactly identify your friend's phone line. A local telephone office receives this information when you dial and sends your call in the right direction. Call signals to places close by travel along wires or cables, buried underground or strung high in the air between supports. But when the person you call is very far away, the electrical signals sent from your phone are changed into invisible waves of energy called microwaves, which can travel long distances through the air. These waves are sent through space to communication satellites that orbit the world, which bounce them back to Earth, extending the wave's travel distance. An antenna at a receiving station near the home of your friend picks up the waves and changes them to electrical signals once more. They travel by cable to the telephone office that services your friend's neighborhood, where his or her number is identified. A signal is then sent to your friend's phone to make it ring. The entire process from dialing to ringing takes just a few seconds. When your friend answers the phone, a microphone in its mouthpiece contains a plastic disc that vibrates, turning his or her message into electrical signals that travel along the same path as before. A speaker in the earpiece of your phone receives the electrical signals, which vibrate another plastic disc that changes them back into sound. Two circuits from microphone to speaker are created, and you can talk back and forth with your friend. The next time you use the phone, think of the remarkable process that makes it possible.
Why do most things bought in stores have bars and numbers printed on them?
The groups of lines and numbers that you see on the packaging or labels of most items in a store are called the Universal Product Code, UPC. Widely used in the United States, the series of bars holds a coded message that allows a computer to exactly identify the name and size of each product and the company that makes it. The numbers accompanying the lines give the same information, but the bars can only be read by a machine, while the numbers can be read by store employees. When you buy an item in a store, a worker passes the item's barcode in front of a reading device. A beam of laser light scans the barcode, and its unique light and dark pattern is changed into on and off electrical signals. These signals travel to a computer, which identifies the item and sends information about it to a main store computer or to one located in the business's main office. To help keep track of the store's stock of that item, for instance, the computer is also connected to a cash register, which can print the item name and price on a receipt. UPC symbols have made it easier for retailers to keep track of merchandise and to learn what kinds of items customers want to buy. It saves purchasers time in the checkout line, helping store employees ring up items quickly and accurately.
How do escalators work?
An escalator is a continuously moving stairway. It takes people from one floor of a building to another, just like an elevator. But it can transport many more people than an elevator can in the same amount of time. Between 5,000 and 8,000 per hour. An escalator is run by an electric motor located at the top. It turns a large, geared drive wheel that moves a chain with steps attached to it in a continuous loop above the floor and below. A large return wheel guides the chain at the bottom of the escalator. So a set of escalator stairs runs under the set you travel on, which pop up for more riders. Rubbery handrails, which also move in a continuous loop, are connected to the drive wheel as well and give riders a good grip as they travel along.
Why do flowers look different from one another?
The way a flower looks depends a lot on the way it is pollinated. Flowers that depend on the wind for pollination are usually small and plain looking, because they don't need to attract the attention of insects and birds to carry their pollen. But flowers that do depend on the carrier method need ways to attract the animals that will help them cross-pollinate. And flowers are often structured in terms of color, scent, and shape to suit a particular insect or animal visitor. Many flowers attractive to bees have parts that act as landing platforms, so the bees that visit them can rest their heavy bodies while feeding. Bees can see most colors, except red, and they are attracted to colorful flowers. And because bees use long sucking tubes to collect pollen and nectar, the flowers that they visit often have long, narrow shapes. Butterflies like many of the same flowers that bees do. They, too, have long, sucking mouth parts and like to land when feeding. Their large wings keep them from traveling deep into flowers, though. For this reason they prefer flowers that are flat, broad, and clustered. Butterflies are attracted to all bright colors. Moths, which are similar to butterflies, are nocturnal, which means they are active at night. So the flowers they are attracted to tend to be light-colored, or white, the kinds of flowers that show up well in the dark. and because moths tend to hover in the air when feeding. They need no landing platforms on the flowers they visit. Hummingbirds have a poor sense of smell but see color well. The flowers they prefer are bright red or orange and supply plenty of nectar in their deep, narrow blooms. Flowers pollinated by flies, which are attracted to decaying matter, where they tend to lay their eggs, are generally dark green, purple, or brown colors that resemble the rotted material flies prefer. The flowers that bats feed from have large openings for their snouts, and strong parts that the animals can grip onto with their claws.
How do computers work?
A computer, like all digital machines, changes writing, images, and sound into a special numerical language. It is a binary, or two-part, language that has just two number pairs, 0 and 1. These numbers are called binary digits, or bits for short. In a digital machine, the numbers take the form of electric signals. With a 1 the electricity is switched on and with a 0 it is switched off. Information of all kinds, then, is turned into electrical on-off signals arranged in countless individual patterns. These patterns can be stored, sent along digital pathways, or converted back into forms that we can use and understand with extraordinary speed and accuracy. Bits enter a personal computer from the keypad, mouse, microphone, and scanner. They are received and sent out by the modem, as well as stored in various memory devices. The computer screen, printer, and speakers convert the bits into forms of information that we can use.
How do elevators work?
An elevator is any device that moves things or people from one level to another. They are especially important in tall structures like skyscrapers, where climbing stairs to get to top floors would be very difficult. The car of an elevator, in which people ride, is attached to guard rails inside a tall, empty space called a shaft. It is moved by a steel cable that is attached to a large weight that counterbalances it. An electric motor raises and lowers the cable, changing the positions of the car and weight as the elevator moves from floor to floor. Usually posted inside an elevator are numbers that indicate the car's weight limit. An elevator motor cannot do its job if a car is a lot heavier than the weight that balances it. The first elevators in use were not especially safe because once in a while a cable would break, and a car, pulled by gravity, would come crashing down. Safety devices were soon added, though, to keep such disasters from occurring. American inventor Elisha Otis invented the first safety elevator in 1853. Additional ropes attached to cars and powerful metal jaws that grip guard rails keep elevators from falling if their main cables break. Other safety devices keep elevators from moving when their doors are still open and from traveling too fast. Automatic switches in the shaft allow an elevator to hurry past unwanted floors, or to slow and stop when a chosen floor is reached, unlocking its doors to admit and release passengers.
What is a laser?
A laser, which is short for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, is a device that produces laser light. Laser light is more powerful than ordinary light because all its rays have the same wavelength and move together, allowing them to be focused in a narrow beam with great precision. The rays that make up regular light are made of several wavelengths that spread out in all directions once they leave their source. A laser beam can be focused on so small an area that it can put 200 holes on the head of a pin. Laser light beams vary in strength, depending on the materials and amount of energy used to make them. Some made of invisible infrared rays can create so much heat that they can cut through metal. Because laser beams can be controlled with such precision, these same infrared rays can be used instead of scalpels to perform the most delicate surgeries. Lasers that produce visible light beams are equally useful, both in scientific work and in our everyday lives. Because laser beams can measure great distances with such accuracy, for example, they have been reflected from mirrors placed on the moon to record our exact distance from it. Telephone and computer signals are sometimes changed into laser light so that they can travel with great speed through glass fiber optic cables. Low-powered light lasers read the barcodes on the labels of products we buy at stores and scan the patterns etched on compact discs to give us music.
How does a refrigerator keep food cold?
When a liquid evaporates, or changes into a gas, it absorbs heat from the things around it. That principle explains why you feel cooler when you sweat. The liquid perspiration removes body heat as it evaporates into the air. The opposite occurs: a gas gives off heat when it changes into a liquid. These two principles are used in most refrigeration systems. Refrigerators are cooled by a special fluid, refrigerant, that is easily changed into a gas or vapor and then back into a liquid again. Compressing the refrigerant, squeezing it into a smaller space than it would normally occupy, makes it take on its liquid form, and it is pumped through evaporator tubes inside a refrigerator. As it changes back to a gas there, it absorbs heat from the food and air inside, cooling the refrigerator's interior. The warmed vapor is pumped outside the refrigerator, by a compressor, and through condenser tubes, where it releases heat into the air as it turns into a liquid again. That heat is the warm air you feel at the back or bottom of a refrigerator. The cycle continues as the refrigerant travels in and out, carrying heat away and keeping food cold. A thermostat set at a certain temperature turns an electric motor on and off. The motor circulates the refrigerant, keeping the right amount of coolness inside the refrigerator. Air conditioners work in a similar way.
But how does the metal switch in a toaster bend?
It bends because it is made of two metals that are joined together, something called a bimetal switch. One metal, usually brass, expands quickly when heated, while the other expands much more slowly. This difference causes the switch to bend toward the low expansion metal. Bimetal switches are used in other appliances that switch electricity on and off to keep their temperatures even, like irons and refrigerators. The thermostat that regulates the temperature of your home by turning your furnace and air conditioner on and off also uses a bimetal switch.
How do trains run?
A train is a series of unpowered cars pulled along tracks by a locomotive, or engine. The locomotive is run by a motor, either electric or a diesel-electric combination, that provides the power that turns its wheels, moving the engine and the cars attached to it. A single locomotive can pull dozens and dozens of cars. Some trains reach more than a mile in length. Electric motors are used only for trains that run over the same track for short distances. They receive electricity from wires that run above the track. Trolleys and streetcars are types of electric trains. A subway train is powered by electricity delivered through a third rail on its tracks. Unlike electric engines, diesel-electric engines can provide the amount of power needed to propel locomotives that travel long distances and pull great weights. Burning diesel oil powers a generator that creates electricity. The electricity powers motors that turn the wheels. For many decades, before diesel oil was used, locomotive engines were powered by superheated steam, made by burning coal or wood in large furnaces.
Why are some plants poisonous?
Plants can't run away from predators, animals that will eat them, so some have developed other methods of defense. Many plants have some poisonous parts. The leaves of a rhubarb plant are extremely dangerous to eat. For example, though its stems are quite harmless and tasty. Scientists believe that plants often have one poisonous part to keep predators away, while other parts remain harmless and safe for animal pollinators.
How does the internet work?
Just as telephones are connected by a worldwide phone system, Home and work computers can connect with a global computer communications network known as the Internet. Each computer that is linked to the system has its own Internet address, as individual as a phone number. Home computer users buy the services of an Internet provider, which is an organization with powerful computers that link all its subscribers to the Internet. Many large organizations and companies have computers that link them directly to the network. Internet users can visit the World Wide Web, which is a global network of websites providing information, entertainment, products, and other services. People can use the Internet to send electronic mail, known as email, to one another in just a few seconds. Once you type a message into your computer to send to your cousin, let's say who lives miles from you across the country, it travels through the wires of your phone line as a series of electrical signals. Or, for some people, the signals travel through the same cables that bring them cable television. These signals travel to a station run by your service provider, where a big computer sends them to an Internet routing center. Located all over the world, routing centers link to organizations and Internet providers send the countless computer communications that come to them each second along the quickest possible routes to their destinations. A giant computer there reads the address on your email and sends it farther. Depending on the distance it must travel, it may continue along phone lines, be changed into light signals that can travel with great speed along thin glass strands called fiber optic cables, or be converted into equally speedy invisible bands of energy known as radio waves and transmitted to a communications satellite that will bounce it back to Earth to a ground station located close to where your cousin lives. Once your message reaches the routing center nearest your cousin, it will be sent to the station of his or her service provider. From there it will be sent along regular phone lines to his or her computer. And all of this happens in a matter of moments.
How do cellular phones work?
Cellular phones have exploded in popularity in a relatively short period of time. Cell phones first became available to consumers in the early 1980s. But the technology that made them small and truly portable evolved gradually over the next 10 years or so. By the beginning of the 21st century, millions and millions of people in countries all over the world were using cell phones on a daily basis. And it isn't just adults who enjoy the benefits of completely mobile phone capabilities. In the United States alone, more than 20% of teenagers have a cell phone. That translates to at least 1 in 5 American teens. Before cellular phones, people like police officers or taxi drivers could communicate from their cars using two-way radios. All of the radios in one city transmitted signals via a large central antenna located on top of a tall building, with all callers sharing one antenna. The number of calls that could be made at any one time was very limited. The cellular system takes care of that problem by dividing each city into many small cells. A large city can have hundreds. Each cell has its own tower, which contains an antenna as well as transmitters and receivers that send and receive signals. Each tower can handle numerous callers at a given time, and their small size and weaker signal, compared to the radio antennae, means that their signals don't interfere with those of nearby towers. When you call someone using a cellular phone, your phone is sending and receiving signals via radio waves, invisible bands of energy that work like light rays. In other words, your cell phone is a fancy, high-tech radio. After you dial a friend's number, your phone must find the closest tower by searching for the strongest signal. Once that signal is located, your phone transmits certain information like your cell phone number and serial number that help your service provider, the company your parents pay each month for cell phone service, make sure you are one of their customers. Then the mobile telephone switching office, MTSO, finds an available channel where your conversation can take place. The MTSO then completes the connection, all of this happening in a few short seconds. And you are chatting with your friend without wires or cords to hold you down. If you are sitting in the back seat of the car while talking, and your mom is driving you from one end of town to the other, your call will be automatically switched from one cell to the next without any pause in your conversation.
How does a tape recorder work?
A tape recorder uses a magnetic language to record and play back music, words, and sounds. It does this by way of a plastic tape coated with tiny iron particles that are arranged in a haphazard way. Sound that enters a tape recorder's microphone is turned into electrical signals. These electrical signals, in turn, are changed into magnetic signals by an electromagnet, located in the recording head. When a recording tape rubs against the head as it winds from one spool to another, its metal particles are magnetized and rearranged in patterns that correspond with the different sounds being recorded. When a tape is played back, the reverse process takes place. When rubbed across a playing head, the iron particles of a tape send magnetic signals that are converted into electrical signals. These signals are then changed by the tape recorder's speaker into sound. The videocassette player, VCR, that you use to record television shows and play movies has a similar magnetic language. All the information that makes up sound and pictures can be stored on a videotape in magnetized metal particles, arranged in complicated patterns. Videotapes are much wider than cassette tapes because they carry so much more information.
How do plants cause hay fever?
The male reproductive cells of many plants are encased in a hard grain called pollen. Wind carries the pollen of many trees and grasses from one plant to another. When these male reproductive cells unite with female reproductive cells in plants of the same species, fertilization and seed making takes place. Unlike plants that are pollinated by insects or animals, wind-pollinated plants have to produce huge numbers of pollen grains because wind pollination is a less reliable method of fertilization. During certain parts of the year, the air is filled with such pollen grains, which are fine and dry for easier wind travel. Billions of spores, microscopic reproductive cells produced by other types of plants, like molds, also fill the air. Some people are allergic to all these tiny airborne plant particles. They cause inflammation and extra fluid production in the eyes, nose, and throat, resulting in symptoms like itchy, watery eyes, stuffy noses, coughing, and sneezing. The condition is known as hay fever, though it doesn't usually involve hay or cause a fever. People who have seasonal hay fever get these symptoms in the season of the year when the specific pollen they are allergic to is released. In spring, hay fever may be caused by tree pollens. In summer, grass pollens may be the culprit. Ragweed plants bloom in the late summer and fall, their pollens are the most common cause of hay fever.
What is a weed?
Strictly speaking, a weed is simply a plant growing where it is not wanted. Weeds usually grow easily and spread, and they often interfere with the growth of more desirable plants. Weeds don't usually have nice features, like pretty flowers or tasty leaves. To make them more appealing to people or other animals, they are frequently hard to get rid of, growing back from the smallest bit left in the ground. People's opinions vary greatly about which plants are weeds. In the United States, for instance, most people consider dandelions weeds and spend a lot of time and effort trying to get rid of them. In France, however, they are grown as a crop, with their leaves used in salads and their roots processed to make a coffee-like drink.
What is a wildflower?
Wildflowers are flowering plants that grow in the wild, in their native habitats. Most of the flowers that people plant in their gardens or keep in their homes are cultivated, which means they have been grown with the help of people rather than occurring on their own in nature. Over the past several hundred years, gardeners and scientists have worked to gradually improve the plants that they grow. To improve a plant species, people work to germinate, or grow plants from only the seeds that came from the best plants, discarding the seeds of weaker, less attractive plants. Further improvement comes from hybridization, or crossbreeding. In this process, A plant that has beautiful flowers but no scent might be combined with a different plant that has dull flowers but a lovely fragrance. The hoped-for result is a plant that combines the best of both plants' features, producing pretty flowers that smell nice. This kind of change occurs very slowly, over long periods of time. But the plants that people began with were plants that grew wild. Some plants grew in one part of the world, while others only grew in another part. As people began to travel more, however, they collected plants not native to their homelands, bringing them back to raise at home. Many of the plants that we buy for our gardens today originally came from far away and are the products of the breeding efforts of generations of plant experts. Wildflowers are perfectly suited to their environments because they have not been transported from foreign lands. They have also not been changed by plant breeding, and they exist in their original state. Wildflowers grow in many different environments, like fields, swamps, and forests, and even in your own backyard.